Let me read your five lies real quickly. The book's outlined. One, homosexuality is normal. Two, being a spiritual person is kinder than being a biblical Christian. Boy, that's prevalent. Three, feminism is good for the world and the church. Four, transgenderism is normal. And five, modesty is an outdated burden that serves male dominance and holds women back. When I was reading through this, I was so glad you wrote it, because a white old male writing these things will summarily be dismissed, because we are the patriarchy, we are the abusers, we are the misogynists, and so you've jumped into the deep end of the pool. Let me talk about a theme you mentioned a number of times, because it's one that I have lamented. Experiential theology and emotional theology has replaced biblical truth, biblical theology. What's your sense? Why did this happen? I know that's sort of a silly question in some respect, but it seems to govern so much of what we're seeing as being pushed now by Christians on all these aforementioned topics.
Right, right. I mean, there are a lot of reasons. I mean, the first is that the evangelical church didn't have enough biblical theology to deal with the tsunami of the Obergefell decision, the Bostock decision, the quote unquote Respective Marriage Act. And just to unpack some of those, Obergefell was 2015. It legalized gay marriage, but it also introduced this idea of dignitary harm. So that means that you are harming a person who identifies somewhere under the LGBTQ plus alphabet soup if you fail to affirm that. That is a radically different world. When I met Ken Smith in 1997, we had our first meeting. He said, Rosaria, I can accept you as a lesbian, but I don't approve. To even say those words today would be considered a harm of my dignity. And then Bostock in 2020, most evangelicals were asleep or marching with Black Lives Matter, so y'all missed it. But Bostock said that the 1964 Civil Rights Act extends to transgenderism. And so it's at that moment that government schools now have a federal mandate to promote transgenderism, not as part of sex education, where you as a Christian parent could exempt your child, but as part of anti-bullying, where all of the children have to be there. And then you've got the totally Orwellian Respect of Marriage Act, which some pretty significant evangelicals supported, and so did 39 Republican senators. And basically that cemented gay marriage as part of federal law, so you couldn't touch it the way you did, the way we were able to successfully with Roe v. Wade. That's a tsunami of things coming from the culture. And I think the evangelical church in this tsunami was a little bit like a rowboat and you're using half a toothbrush as an oar. They just didn't have it. And part of why they didn't have it is their theology had morphed in ways maybe they didn't notice. I mean, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't notice that they were misreading Jesus maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't notice that an imperative of biblical faith is to love your enemies, not pretend your enemies are your friends. Maybe they missed it. Maybe they didn't know that it's important to know what time it is, that when we speak to the world and we evangelize the world, it's okay. I mean, I guess if you have an impeach Nixon sign in your closet, it's okay. But this is not the moment to bring it out and think, well, I'm really doing a fine job for the world. That's when they think you need memory care, Michael, And so I think that's part of it. These evangelicals they're working from this idea that the gay rights movement, which to my shame I helped create in this country, they are working from the idea that we are dealing with victims who are, just sort of saddled and burdened by unanswered prayer, and all we want is tolerance. Well, you haven't heard that in 15 years?